I remember a couple of months ago looking at some statistics that were highlighting the worst famines in human history and what was the cause of them. And it was very interesting. It seems that on number three, it was military conflict. And this makes sense. If your nation is surrounded by the enemy, if they're blockading the trade routes, then yeah, you're going to have a famine. So this happened to Britain, for example, during the World War. Like they were blockaded, and because of that, prices went up. There were many people that went hungry. So that's the third reason for famine. The second reason for famine is imperialism. So if your nation is conquered by an empire and they plunder everything you have, they send soldiers into the farms and they just take the grain and they take the animals, then yeah, the people there are going to starve. And luckily, when it comes to imperialism, we agree that it's bad. We condemn the practice of it. And I don't even think there are many examples of such behavior in modern time. And if it was, it would definitely be condemned. But the biggest reason for famine in human history, like some of the worst famines ever imaginable, were caused by communism. And it's across the world. Like it's not in one place. You have the Great Famine in China during the Great Leap Forward. You have another famine in Ukraine during the Holodomor. And I looked into it. It's like, why did it happen? And it happened for different reasons across the world. In some places, it happened because the government actually wanted to kill off some people. So for instance, they would say, well, the people in this village are very problematic. Well, we'll just starve them. So they would send the army in, it would confiscate the grain, it would confiscate the animal husbandry, and then they would send soldiers to surround the village and they would leave it like that for 2 years to see what happens. Another reason that they did this was because people who are hungry are easier to control. If you're always hungry, if you're struggling from day to day, it's very unlikely that you're going to protest and risk losing that welfare check, which is the only thing that's keeping you barely alive. So it is a cynical way of doing things, to keep people in check. Also, like if people are starving and they're hungry, they're a lot weaker. They're not strong enough. They don't have the muscles in order to get the idea that maybe they can resist. And another reason for it is central planning. It's when the government gets high on its own farts and they believe that they're actually wiser than everyone else because they have the experts and they have the science on their hand. And then they do something like Lysenkoism. Lysenkoism was when a brilliant scientist from the Soviet Union discovered that plants, just like people, thrive better under socialism. So normally you plant seeds apart from each other so that their roots don't get tangled. But Lysenko came up with a completely different idea. No, you plant them together so that their roots help each other. Turns out they didn't. Anyone that disagreed with Lysenkoism was spreading harmful and dangerous misinformation. And they were a bigot that had to be fired. Everyone that agreed with Lysenko was being promoted. Also, at the time, the communists believed that evolution or anything that has to do with genetics, it's a Nazi concept, right? Like only the Nazis believed in genetics. So because of that, any type of biologist that would claim that there is anything genetical to do with plants would immediately get fired. Turns out when you fire a lot of people, you reach scientific consensus. Scientific consensus is very easy to achieve. You just fire a couple, and immediately all the other scientists who want to keep their paycheck and prestige, yeah, they all agree with you. Yeah, sure, 2 plus 2 equals 5. Absolutely. Yeah, no. Oh, that guy said that 2 plus 2 equals 4. Oh, I don't know. Just fire him. I mean, it's what we do here, isn't it? That's how science was done in the Soviet Union. Turns out it created a famine. Very interesting, isn't it? Do they teach that in the history books? Probably not. Another famine was created in China during the Great Leap Forward. They had the 5-year plan. They wanted to produce more steel than the United Kingdom did. So they took all the farmers away from the field and they got them to produce steel at home. Like they had like these foundries that they installed in various places, and they had like these little huts that they mounted in various villages. Obviously, the rate and the grade, the quality of steel was horrible, to say the least, but they got all the peasants to do that. Turns out you need peasants in order to farm the crops, and the crops rotted on the fields. Turns out it's not good. They also, in their infinite wisdom, decided that the sparrow needs to be killed. The sparrow is that cute little bird, which apparently eats from the harvest. And it's like, well, if we get rid of the sparrows, then they're not going to eat the harvest, right? Well, it turns out that the sparrow also eats locusts and other types of insects. And by getting rid of the sparrow, they ended up losing even more crops. So this is what happens when you have central planning. When you have like a couple of wise people, which are smarter than the market. They're smarter than the peasantry, which the peasantry are high in numbers, but apparently they're dumb. And they're not as wise as the people in power. And you just control. You get everything to be controlled by a couple of people who probably never visit a grain field in their entire life. And it seems that this is what we're witnessing here, the centralization of power and control, where the United Nations is telling Americans to reduce meat consumption, because they just fucking know better. They know better than the American economy, they know better than the American farmer, they genuinely know better than people who have been doing this for generations. Like, my father was a farmer, my grandfather was a farmer, my great-great-grandfather was a... But the guy from the United Nations is smarter than all of them put together. So the lead United Nations agency overseeing food and agriculture policy is expected to issue a roadmap in the coming weeks, which will call on the West, including America, to dramatically reduce its meat consumption. And I'm looking at the man, and he doesn't look like someone that escaped a gulag. Like, he doesn't look like his cheeks are being dragged in, you know? He doesn't look thin. Doesn't look all skin and bone. He looks like a man that eats very well. And this is what I constantly notice with these environmentalists. All of them happen to have better lifestyles than I do. Not one of them seems to be a person that is living the dream. And is showing, look, this is how I live, and this is how you need to live, right? Like, the thing is, during the medieval times, you actually did have that monk that came up to talk with the villagers, and the monk looked as if he lives a life of piety. As if he doesn't whore himself, as if he doesn't drink alcohol, as you know? Like, there were those examples of people, like, there were priests in my country, there still are, which actually do live the type of life that they preach. And they are beacons of leadership. They're like, okay, if you want to reach salvation because you believe in Jesus Christ, you gotta live the way I do. So you gotta fast when I fast, you gotta not touch the bottle when I don't touch it, you know, like that type of thing. But it seems that when it's with the environmentalists, they fly around using private planes, they have private yachts, they gorge themselves on the taxes provided by these agricultural companies that they hate so much. And for some reason, they also come up and say, yeah, well, you guys lower your living standards so that I can maintain mine. Apparently, food system emissions deserve a place at the top of the table alongside energy and transport. Yeah, like literally the essentials, right? Like the essentials to have a modern lifestyle and not to fall back to medieval time, these have to go. And the question becomes, like, for how long? Okay, like, you want us to give up everything we have, all our technology, go back to the fucking Stone Age. For how long? And the answer is forever. Let me know what you guys think. I will go in a live stream right after this, and we'll keep talking about it. So there's like, if you're in the chat, there's a blue thing. If you click it now, it takes you to my live stream. And if you're not watching this live, then there's a link into the pinned comment section, and it will take you to my live stream as well. So hopefully I'll see you guys there. Take care.